Hold up, Pauline Johnson was a Canadian poet, performer, and writer of Mohawk and English heritage. She was born on the Six Nation Reserve in Ontario to a Mohawk father, George Johnson, and an English mother, Emily Howells. Her father was a Mohawk chief and government interpreter, which gave her a unique perspective on Indigenous and settler cultures. Johnson grew up in a bilingual and bicultural household, where she developed a love for literature and storytelling. She was homeschooled for much of her early life, reading works by Shakespeare, Byron, and Longfellow. Inspired by her heritage, she started writing poetry in her teenage years, focusing on Indigenous identity and nature. Her first poem was published in 1884, and she quickly gained recognition in Canadian literary circles. And she incorporated Indigenous themes into her work. In 1892, she began performing her poetry across Canada, the United States, and Britain. She wore traditional Mohawk attire for the first half of her performances, and changed to Victorian dresses, symbolizing her dual heritage. Johnson's performances captivated audience, blending theatrical storytelling with poetry. She was one of the first Indigenous women to gain international recognition as a writer and performer. Her first book, White Wampum, featured poems that explored Indigenous culture, nature, and romance. She followed with another book, Canadian Born, and Flint and Feather, becoming the third one, the latter becoming her most popular work. Johnson's poetry reflected both the struggles and pride of Indigenous people, challenging colonial perspectives. She also wrote essays and short stories, many of which were published in magazines. In 1909, she retired from performing and settled in Vancouver, where she continued writing. She contributed to newspapers advocating for Indigenous rights and environmental conservation. Diagnosed with breast cancer, she spent her final years in poverty, supported by friends and admirers. She died in 1913 at the age of 52, leaving behind a lasting literary legacy. In her honor, Vancouver named Stanley Park's Pauline Johnson's memorial after her. Her influence continues today, with her work studying in Canadian literature courses. She's remembered for breaking barriers as an Indigenous woman in the arts.